Welcome back to another episode of Coin Treasures, where today we're going to explore three seemingly ordinary dimes that could be hiding extraordinary value right in your pocket change or old coin collection. Many experienced collectors overlook these modern coins, thinking valuable rarities only come from centuries past, but today we'll uncover why the 1995, 1986, and 1983 US 1 dimes deserve a second look from even the most seasoned numismatists. Let's start with the 1995 Roosevelt dime, a coin that most Americans have handled thousands of times without realizing its potential significance. What makes this particular dime special is not what you might expect. While most 1995 dimes are indeed worth only 10 cents, certain varieties have captured the attention of serious collectors and have commanded impressive prices at auction. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of dimes in 1995, but among this massive mintage, a small number of double-die reverse varieties exist that are highly sought after. These coins show noticeable doubling on the 1 dime lettering and the torch and olive branch on the reverse side. The historical context of the 1995 dime is fascinating in itself. This was a period of relative economic stability in the United States, coming after the recession of the early 1990s. The Roosevelt dime had been in production for over 5 decades by this point, with the design remaining largely unchanged since 1946. The U.S. Mint was producing coins at an incredible rate to meet commercial demand, and quality control was sometimes inconsistent, which is how some of these valuable varieties escaped into circulation. Identifying the valuable 1995 dime varieties requires a keen eye. The most notable is the FS 901 5S Stanton numbering system, double die reverse, which shows clear doubling visible to the naked eye on the letters of 1 dime and the torch at the bottom of the coin. Less dramatic but still valuable are minor double dies and repunched mint marks. What makes these coins particularly rare is that they weren't discovered until several years after their release, by which time most had already entered circulation and suffered wear or damage. In terms of current market value, the 1995 double-die reverse dimes have shown remarkable appreciation. A circulated example in extremely fine condition can fetch between $75 and $150, while uncirculated specimens have sold for $400 to $800 at recent auctions. The record price for a 1995 double-die reverse in gem uncirculated condition, MS 65 or better, stands at $2,300, achieved at a major coin auction in 2019. Even more impressive is that prices have continued to climb as more collectors become aware of this modern rarity. One interesting aspect of the 1995 dime story is how it was discovered. Unlike many famous rarities that were identified almost immediately, the significant double-die reverse variety of 1995 wasn't widely recognized until the early 2000s. A sharp-eyed collector in Ohio noticed something unusual about a dime he received as change and sent it for authentication. Once verified, the news spread through collector circles, and the hunt began. Today, it's estimated that fewer than 200 confirmed examples exist in all grades combined, making it genuinely rare despite its modern origin. Condition plays a crucial role in determining the value of these coins. As with most collectible coins, the 1995 dime follows the principle that preservation equals premium. Circulated examples showing even minor wear are worth significantly less than uncirculated specimens. A coin graded MS 60, the lowest uncirculated grade, might sell for around $300, while the same variety in MS 63 could command $500. The jump in value becomes even more pronounced at higher grades, with MS 65 examples reaching the $1,000 to $1,500 range, and exceptional MS 67 specimens potentially exceeding $2,500. Finding these in circulation today is extremely unlikely, as most have been pulled from circulation by attentive collectors over the past 2 decades. What makes the 1995 dime particularly appealing to many collectors is its accessibility. Unlike coins from the 19th century that might cost thousands even in low grades, the 1995 double die reverse represents an opportunity to own a genuine rarity with a low mintage and significant demand, all at a relatively modest price point compared to classic rarities. It's a perfect example of how valuable coins aren't always centuries old or made of precious metals. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their significance. Now we arrive at our final coin, the 1983 Roosevelt dime, a coin whose value stems not from a dramatic doubling or a special mint mark, but from something that should be there but isn't. While the 1986 W celebrated its mint mark, the 1983's rarity comes from the absence of one where it absolutely should have been. This seemingly small oversight created one of the most significant and valuable modern dime errors, a coin that has stunned the collecting world with its prices and scarcity. It's a perfect example of how the most valuable modern rarities often hinge on the tiniest details that escaped quality control. To understand the 1983 dime, we need to step back to the early 1980s. This was a period of significant transition at the United States Mint. In 1982, the Mint had switched the composition of the cent from primarily copper to copper-plated zinc, causing massive confusion and numerous varieties. More relevantly for our dime, the Mint was also in the process of changing the style and size of the mint mark punches used on coins. Traditionally, mint marks were punched into the dies by hand after the main design was hubbed. However, starting in the late 1970s and accelerating through the 1980s, the Mint began incorporating the mint mark directly into the master hubs used to create the working dies. This was meant to improve consistency and efficiency. For the Roosevelt dime, the P mint mark for Philadelphia was supposed to be added to the master hub starting in 1980. However, the transition wasn't seamless. Some dies were hubbed with the new P mint mark, while others, particularly older dies or those made from older hubs, were still being used without the mint mark. By 1983, the Mint intended all Philadelphia dimes to bear the P mint mark. But due to a combination of lingering old dies, hubbing errors, or simply oversight, a small number of 1,983 dimes were struck at Philadelphia bearing no mint mark at all. Identifying the valuable 1983 dime is straightforward but requires attention. Look at the obverse, front, of the coin, just below the date, 1983. A standard Philadelphia dime from this year should have a small P mint mark. A Denver dime will have a D. The rare and valuable variety is the Philadelphia dime missing the P mint mark entirely. This is officially designated as FS 901 in the Cherry Picker's Guide. Crucially, this is not the same as the 1982 no P dime. While 1982 also saw some Philadelphia dimes struck without the P, and those are valuable too, especially in copper-nickel, the 1983 version is far rarer and significantly more valuable. The sheer scale of 1,983 dime production makes the error even more astonishing. The Philadelphia Mint churned out over 1.3 billion dimes that year. Yet, only a tiny fraction, estimates range from a few thousand to perhaps 50,000 at most, were struck without the mint mark. Why so few? The Mint quickly caught the error and corrected the dies. Most examples entered circulation unnoticed, as the public wasn't conditioned to look for a mint mark on Philadelphia dimes until 1980, and many simply wouldn't have registered its absence. The market value of the 1983 no P Roosevelt dime reflects its true scarcity and intense collector demand. This coin has consistently been one of the most sought-after modern errors. Even a circulated example showing noticeable wear, fine to extremely fine, commands a substantial premium, typically ranging from $50 to $100. As condition improves, the value escalates dramatically. An about uncirculated, -50 Australian dollars to -58 Australian dollars, specimen can fetch $200 to $500. The real excitement begins with uncirculated coins. A 1983 no P dime in mint state 60, MS 60, condition, the lowest uncirculated grade, is valued around $800 to $1,200. An MS-63 example jumps to $2,500 to $4,000. The value skyrockets for gem uncirculated coins. An MS-65 specimen is a true prize, typically selling for $7,000 to $12,000. But the pinnacle is the MS-67 grade, especially with full bands, FTB. The auction record for this coin is absolutely staggering. A pristine PCGS MS-67 full bands example sold for an incredible $17,625 in 2022. Even MS-66 full bands examples regularly command $10,000 or more. These prices aren't anomalies, they represent a strong, sustained market for this key modern rarity, with values showing consistent upward pressure over the past decade as more collectors realize its significance and high-grade examples become virtually impossible to find. The story behind the 1983 No-P dime is rich with intrigue and collector lore. Unlike the 1986 W, which was a known, if obscure, mint issue, the 1983 No-P was a genuine error that flew completely under the radar for years. It wasn't until the late 1980s and early 1990s that sharp-eyed collectors began noticing the absence of the P on some 1983 dimes. Initial reports were met with skepticism. Surely the mint wouldn't make such a basic error on a coin produced in the billions? But as more examples surfaced and were authenticated, the reality set in. The mint eventually acknowledged the error, attributing it to the use of old dies or hubs that hadn't been updated with the new P mint mark punch during the transition period. This explanation makes sense, but it doesn't diminish the coin's rarity. What makes the story particularly fascinating is the sheer number of coins that had to be produced for this error to occur at all, and yet, how few examples survived. Think about it, over 1.3 billion dimes struck, and only a tiny fraction lack the mint mark. The odds of finding one in circulation today are astronomical, yet it still happens occasionally. There are documented cases of collectors finding 1983 No-P dimes in bank rolls or even pocket change decades after their release, each find causing a ripple of excitement in the numismatic community. This coin has become a modern legend, often compared to famous errors like the 1955 double-die Lincoln cent or the 1922 No-D Lincoln cent in terms of its impact on modern collecting. Condition is absolutely paramount for the 1983 No-P dime, arguably more so than for the 1995 or 1986 coins we discussed earlier. The difference in value between grades is immense. Why? Because the mint's production quality in 1983, while improved from earlier decades, still wasn't geared towards creating perfect coins for collectors. Dimes were made for commerce, not preservation. Finding an uncirculated example is difficult enough, finding one with pristine surfaces, full luster, and no contact marks is exceptionally rare. The grading standard for Roosevelt dimes places significant emphasis on the reverse design, specifically the horizontal bands on the torch. Coins where these bands are fully separated and distinct, full bands or FTB, command substantial premiums over those where the bands are merged or weak. For the 1983 No-P, achieving the FTB designation at high grades is the holy grail. An MS-65 without full bands might sell for $5,000 to $7,000, but the same grade with full bands jumps to $10,000 to $15,000. So, there you have it. Three seemingly ordinary Roosevelt dimes from the 1980s and 1990s, each holding the potential for extraordinary value. The 1995, with its dramatic double-die reverse, the 1986 W, a stealth issue from the West Point Mint with a minuscule mintage, and the 1983 No-P, a glaring mint mark omission creating a legendary error. They represent different paths to rarity, the striking variety, the low mintage issue, and the significant error. Each tells a unique story about the mint's operations, the era they were born in, and the collectors who discovered their hidden worth. For those of you who might have old coin collections, jars of change, or even just a few dimes set aside, take a closer look. Check those dates. Look for the mint marks, or the lack thereof. Examine the details under good light. You never know when you might be holding one of these modern treasures. The next great find could be sitting right in front of you, waiting for a knowledgeable eye to recognize its true significance. Happy hunting, and may your next roll search reveal something remarkable. Now let's turn our attention to the 1986 Roosevelt dime, a coin that tells a completely different story of modern rarity. While the 1995 gained fame through a striking error, the 1980's excess value comes from something far more subtle yet equally significant, an incredibly low mintage from a specific mint that most collectors didn't even realize existed at the time. This isn't about double dies or dramatic mistakes, it's about a simple, W, mint mark that transforms an ordinary dime into a key modern rarity sought after by serious collectors nationwide. The historical backdrop of the 1986 dime places us firmly in the mid-1980s, an era of economic recovery and cultural shifts in America. The U.S. Mint was primarily focused on producing massive quantities of coins for everyday commerce, but 1986 also marked the centennial of the Statue of Liberty, leading to the production of special commemorative coins. Amidst this, the Philadelphia and Denver mints churned out hundreds of millions of dimes as usual. However, what wasn't widely publicized at the time was that a small number of dimes were also struck at the West Point Mint in New York, bearing a tiny W mint mark. West Point had primarily been a bullion depository, but it began producing coins occasionally in the 1970s and 1980s, often in limited quantities and sometimes without much fanfare. The 1986 dime was one such coin, a stealth issue that flew under the radar for years. Identifying the valuable 1986 dime is straightforward once you know what to look for, but finding one is the real challenge. The key is the mint mark location, just below the date on the obverse, front, of the coin. Philadelphia dimes have no mint mark, Denver dimes show a D, and the rare West Point dimes display a W. Here's the crucial fact: the U.S. Mint officially reported that only 3,210,000 dimes were struck at West Point in 1986. Compare that to the Philadelphia Mint's output of over 909 million dimes that same year, and you immediately grasp the scarcity. The W dime wasn't discovered as a significant rarity until the late 1990s and early 2000s, long after most had entered circulation. By then, countless examples had been spent, lost, or damaged, leaving only a fraction surviving in collectible condition today. The current market value of the 1986 W dime reflects its true rarity and growing demand among collectors. In circulated condition, even a well-worn example commands a substantial premium over face value, typically ranging from $10 to $20 depending on the amount of wear. However, the real value lies in uncirculated specimens. A 1986 W dime in mint state 60, MS 60, condition, the lowest uncirculated grade, can easily sell for $300 to $500. As the grade increases, so does the price dramatically. An MS 63 example might fetch $600 to $800, while a gem MS 65 specimen can command $1,200 to $1,800. The auction record for this coin is staggering. A pristine MS 67 example sold for an incredible $7,200 in 2021, highlighting what top condition examples are worth to serious collectors. These prices have shown consistent upward momentum over the past decade as more collectors complete their modern dime sets and realize the significance of this low mintage issue. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1986 W dime story is how it remained relatively unknown for so long. Unlike error coins that often grab immediate attention, this was a regular coin produced in limited quantities at a mint not typically associated with circulating coinage. It wasn't until a dedicated collector in Texas noticed the W mint mark on a 1986 dime he pulled from a bankroll in 2003 that the collecting community began investigating its mintage figures. His discovery, followed by research into mint records, revealed the shockingly low production numbers. The mystery deepens when considering why so few were made. The leading theory is that the West Point Mint was primarily occupied with producing gold and silver bullion coins that year, along with commemorative issues for the Statue of Liberty centennial, leaving little capacity for regular coinage. The dime production may have been a test run or simply a minor allocation to meet unexpected demand, but regardless of the reason, the result was a modern rarity hiding in plain sight. Condition plays an absolutely critical role in the value of the 1986 W dime, perhaps even more so than with many other modern coins. Because so few were saved at the time of issue, finding high-grade examples is exceptionally difficult. The difference between an MS-63 and an MS-65 can mean thousands of dollars. Coins graded MS-66 are rare enough to be considered significant finds, often selling for $2,500 to $3,500. MS-67 examples are true condition rarities, with only a handful known to exist, explaining the five-figure auction prices. Even among uncirculated coins, factors like full torch bands, FTB, where the horizontal bands on the torch on the reverse are fully separated and distinct, can add substantial premiums. An MS-65 with FTB might sell for 20 to 30% more than one without. For circulated examples, the value drops off sharply once the coin shows moderate wear, fine to very fine grades, falling into the $5 to $15 range. However, even a heavily circulated 1986 W dime is worth holding onto simply because of its inherent scarcity. What makes the 1986 W dime particularly compelling for collectors is that it represents a different kind of rarity, not an error or a variety, but a legitimate, intentionally produced coin with an exceptionally low mintage from a major mint. It's the kind of coin that could easily have been overlooked in an old jar or coin album, dismissed as just another common dime. Yet, for those who recognize the significance of that tiny W mint mark, it's a cornerstone of modern numismatics. The story of its discovery and the mystery surrounding its low production add layers of intrigue that go beyond mere market value. It's a reminder that even in the age of mass production and digital information, genuine rarities can still emerge from the most ordinary places, waiting to transform a simple 10-cent piece into a treasured collectible worth thousands of dollars.